Hey guys, it's Nat and today I'm going to be sharing with you my October wrap up and also what I'm currently reading. So hopefully the books that I'm currently reading I finish in November. So I'm very excited because I actually read some quite good books. Some I gave 5 stars to. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get on into my October wrap up. So the first book I ended up finishing I talked about in my last wrap up, so my September wrap up, because I was currently in the middle of, and that is All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars to. So in this one we follow Aurora, who moves back to a town in the mountains that used to once be her home after she loses her mother and breaks up with her long-term boyfriend. And basically she ends up renting out a apartment above a garage of Rhodes, who is the love interest. And basically we have kind of like a classic Mariana Zapata slow burn romance between Aurora and Rhodes, who ends up being quite rude to her at first, but they slowly break down the walls between them and they become friends first and then lovers, of course. So why I loved this book is because I thought Aurora was one of the funniest female protagonists I read from in a long time. I remember I loved Vanessa from The Wall of Winnipeg and Me so much as a protagonist, and like Aurora I liked at the same level as Vanessa. She was just hilarious, even though she was like dealing with so many traumas and like trying to overcome them. Like she was starting her life from scratch and she was either in her late 20s or like early 30s, I can't remember. And then like we had Rhodes, who was dealing with his own like traumas as well. I just really loved that like Rhodes and Aurora started off as friends. There was like a reason why Rhodes wanted to take things slow, and like it was the sweetest when you found out, because it just made sense. Like he was just giving Aurora time to like try and figure out who she is as a person because she was starting over. Like Rhodes was just the sweetest guy. I just loved him so much, and I absolutely loved that we got to follow these people that were so nice to Aurora during their simple lives in like the mountains, like in this town. And there were so many mountains and it was just like so refreshing not to read romance that was centered in a big city or like even a small city. I just loved how nature was embedded in the story. Like they went on hikes and stuff like that. It was just so nice to read about, you know. And yeah, I thought after I finished this book I would have loved to read another romance set in this town, because the vibes for me were just immaculate, and I'm kind of tempted to reread this book like I did with The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. You have no idea how many times I reread The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. So yeah, 5 out of 5 stars from me, highly recommend. Then I picked up something shorter and it was Fake Fiance by Ilsa Madden-mills, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. So this one's set in college and we follow Max and Sony, and it's like a fake dating, fake engagement situation between them. So basically Max is focused on getting a Heisman, I think, because he's a quarterback, and Sunny has to deal with her ex in her classes. I think it's senior year of college, and yeah, they basically end up fake dating because Max could tell that they had a chemistry like from the moment they met, which was when Sony was banging on his door because some woman that she thought he was sleeping with scratched her car, I think. And it was just hilarious because I thought that from the moment like the doors opened and like Max and Sunny were just in front of each other, like Sunny was getting up all in his face, I was like, I can feel the chemistry. And yeah, was this a perfect read? No, because it was very short and Max did some things that were kind of questionable, but I still really enjoyed it. It was a fun, quick read. Loved the chemistry, as I said, and I'm very glad I picked it up. Ilsa Madden-mills knows what she's doing because I typically always enjoy her stories, and yeah, glad I picked that one up. 4 out of 5 stars from me. Then I picked up Fair Catch by Kandi Steiner, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars to. So I did read the second book first, which was Blindside, because that book was was so popular, like I had to pick it up. And this one's like the first book. We follow Riley and Zeke, who of course I already saw their relationship in the second book because by that time they were together, but in this one it's kind of like an enemies to lovers situation, but it's also brother's best friend because Riley and Zeke have known each other for quite a long time. Riley has a lot of tough situations she has to deal with because she is the only girl on the football team at college, and Zeke ends up being assigned as her roommate by the coach because he's the only one that actually wants to be her roommate because no one else wants to. And yeah, he's always been very protective of her, but she hates him because of something that happened because of Zeke to her brother, and like she's always blamed him for it. But of course it starts off as enemies, but they end up becoming lovers. There's like a friends with benefits kind of situation because Riley needs to blow off some steam in a way. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book because like Zeke has dyslexia, and I was very interested and impressed by how Kandi Steiner like interwove that into his character and like how Riley started to understand it more. I just really enjoyed it. It was packed full of like football scenes because Riley is on the team, which I really enjoyed. I don't know why, but I love reading about sports. And yeah, I just thought it was so cute how Zeke always stepped in and like tried to help her even though she didn't appreciate it because she thought it made her look weak. I just really liked this story, so yeah, that's why I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Highly recommend this series, especially if you're looking for like something that follows American football and then is set in college as well. Then I picked up the third book in this series, which is Quarterback Sneak by Kandi Steiner. This one came out in October, so I was very happy that I actually ended up finishing Fair Catch like a couple days after it was released, so then I could have just gone straight into this one. So in this one we follow Holden, who is like a guy that is always focused on football, but then he meets Julep, who is the new coach's daughter, and she's also an athletic trainer for the team. There's like a forbidden romance between them because coach is like, none of you better touch my daughter or you're off the team, or like I'm gonna bench you at least. So of course, because Holden's focused on his football career and he wants to make it pro, at first tries to avoid Julep, but it's kind of hard because not only are they neighbors, he also gets re-injured and she has to help him get over that injury. And of course, the more time they spend together, the harder it is to not have a romantic relationship. I personally really enjoyed it. Usually I'm not a fan of like stories where the dad is like, oh, you better not date my daughter. But in this one it made sense because both Julep and Holden have dealt with loss, and like Julep went a little bit crazy with, can't remember if it was both drugs and alcohol. So her dad was scared. That's why he was like, I don't want any football players that are usually players dating my daughter. Like I really loved that aspect, and I thought Holden and Julep were a match made in heaven. Like truly, no one understood what Julep was going through as much as Holden did, and then like vice versa. I just loved that. They were very supportive of one another, and even when like the dad found out and that was like the conflict in the story, it made sense why Julep didn't want Holden to like give up on his career when she knew football meant a lot to him. I just really loved it. Holden is one of those heroes that you can't help but root for because he is just the sweetest. Even though this story was so heavy, it was one of the sweetest stories in this series for me. Really loved it. So 4 out of 5 stars from me. And then I ended up finishing my audiobook listen of The Iron Flower by Laurie Forrest. So I did mention this one as well in the currently reading portion of my September wrap up. I'm so happy I finished it. This is the second book in the Black Witch Chronicles, in which we follow like Ellerin as she goes off to university and like she meets all these different people that attend university, like, you know, werewolves, like there's so many people, like Celts I think, and then because she was brought up thinking that like her race is the superior one because that's what it is like in society, she ends up finding out that it's not true. Like all these people are actually quite nice, and yeah, she just ends up battling racism and prejudice and stuff like that. I know, terrible at how I describe this series, but just go on Goodreads and read what the Black Witch is about. I actually am really glad I picked up The Iron Flower because I really enjoyed this one. In some parts it it did feel like it was a bit too long, but I feel like the side characters for sure made this story very enjoyable for me. I really enjoyed the ending, and I'm definitely going to pick up the third book because I'm curious where the story goes, what's going to happen. Like, there's a star-crossed lovers trope in this, and I'm a big fan of that, so just want to see how it all plays out. I do have to say, I thought Ellerin was not going to annoy me in this one. She did, like, she was so whiny. I'm just like, hopefully her character grows more in the third book, because this woman needs to grow up if she wants to save the world, save this world at least. But yeah, I really loved the narrator for the story because, as I said, I picked this up as an audiobook, and I'm very happy I picked this up, so 4 out of 5 stars from me. And yeah, that is it for my October wrap up. Now let's get on into what I'm currently reading. So the first one is a book I actually borrowed from my friend, so I am reading it physically, and it's, wow, a Coho book, or a Colleen Hoover book. I feel like this is one of her most hyped books at the moment, and I actually can't really tell you, but I already finished this one, and I have to say, spoiler alert, I actually quite enjoyed it, even though it was very heavy, which I did not expect. I thought it was going to be a romance, but it's very heavy. I'll talk more about my thoughts, of course, in my November wrap up. And then I'm finally going to get around to Pachinko by min-jin. So I've actually been listening to this book on Audible since like 2020. I'm just having a very hard time after the 50% mark because I'm kind of slowly losing interest, but I do really want to finish this book, so yeah, currently reading that one as well. And then I'm also listening to Cress by Marissa, Meyer, of course. I read Scarlet back in September, so I really want to finish the rest of the series before the year is over. And yeah, I'm enjoying Cress so far, of course. As I said, Cress and Winter are my 2 faves in this series, so yeah, I can't wait to tell you what I thought of Cress the second time around that I read it. So yeah, that is it for my October wrap up and currently reading. Let me know your favourite book of October. For me, of course, it was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. Are we surprised? Not really, I'm not surprised. And then let me know what you're currently reading, as I would love to know, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!